Do you want me to talk? Are we testing sound? Hello, hello, hello. Let's see. Let's see, check. Storytelling event. Okay, sweet. The video is shaky. Well. Okay. Noah, if you could write a comment for Delia on the Facebook page. Yes, I am. There might be a slight delay, but I'm not sure yet. Is it working? Okay, great.
For the year.
Well, I guess while I'm standing here, I haven't said hello to most of you. Thanks for being here. Storytellers, we're so excited to hear from you. It feels really special to be here tonight. I'm excited. It's the first event that Danny and I have run in a long time, and it feels weird and good and exciting and nice to see all you spread out back there. Yeah, I think we're going to try to get started pretty much right at 7 or as close to as we can. So get drinks in the back or floating around and food and that kind of thing. Yay. Do these lights have to be on? It's still like very intense.
We're gonna see. Maybe we move them back a little bit. Maybe that'll help.
The mic? Oh my God, that's so much better. Yeah. And then, actually, maybe you can help me see. Hey, Danny. Are all of our storytellers here? Taylor's here. So yes, more or less. Miguel and Noah, could you tell me where their range is? Like how far people can move? So if I can have the storyteller's attention for just one moment, everybody who's telling a story on stage tonight, this over here. Oh, okay. Well, let's go this way. Over here. Never mind. You're fine. I think we're talking to this one. Hello. How's it going out there?
Hi.
Okay. So glad that was your response, because we're going to do that all over again. This is a massive venue. It's usually 250 people in here. It's COVID. We're spread out. There's very few of us. It's terrifying being up here. The person up behind this microphone really needs a response from you. We need to feel loved by you. We need all of your energy. We need you to laugh as loud as you possibly can, clap as loud as you possibly can. Give us your all. So how is it going out there? Beautiful. Welcome to Liminal. My name is Delia. I am one of the founders of Stained Arts, which is a nonprofit arts organization based here in Denver that puts together visual, performance, and literary arts.
Hi, everybody. I'm Danny. I'm the founder of Soul Stories, and our mission is to host conversations for personal healing, human connection, and social change. And one of our greatest tools to starting a conversation is a story. And tonight you will hear deeply intimate and personal stories of transition, change, and transformation.
So Liminal began as a partnership between Danny and I. We were very curious to explore complex topics through the art of personal storytelling. We've been running this event for 2 years. We've had 31 storytellers and 4 events, and we have learned a lot. The storytellers have crafted stories out of some of their most personal experiences. We are really excited to bring back 18 storytellers over the next 2 days to support and raise money for the Mercury Cafe.
Yeah, let's give it up for the Mercury Cafe. The Mercury Cafe has been a staple in Denver for the last 30 years. And now they are on the brink of closing. Boo. No, yeah, right. Our goal is to raise $5,000, if not more.
Yeah. Danny and I decided to do this event this weekend. It's an unusual one because we're doing a retelling, and we really felt the value of the Mercury and felt like it was imperative that we did what we could to support it. Our collaboration has always been rooted in this venue, and we feel really deeply appreciative of all that it has given us. Each of these stories have come back here tonight to give of themselves to you, to us, and to this venue, to the Mercury Cafe. So if you are live streaming at home right now, we ask that you take a moment to consider all of the art and the community that has come out of this venue. Yeah, there's a GoFundMe link in the comments. Click on that, give what you can, give what feels comfortable to you. The Mercury she's wrapped her arms around me and around us many, many times, and now we're being asked to wrap our arms around her and offer our support of her. You can also Venmo at Soul Stories, and we will donate on your behalf. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving tonight. Thank you for sustaining a community here. I'm grateful for it. I know that Marilyn is grateful for it, and each of us who have found something here in this beautiful venue. I'm gonna do what I do best now and get off of this stage and then go do what I do worst and pretend like I'm a tech person. So I will be back with the live stream folks. I'll be commenting, so let me know what you think. Yeah, hear you out there. And Danny will be our host for the evening.
Yeah, nice, okay. Before we get started, I want to shout out a few people who are making this happen. We have Miguel, Noah, and Adrian who's wandering around. Can we give a huge round of applause for our video crew? I was Googling before how to do a live stream, and I discovered you needed a capture card, some other things, and I had no idea how to do it. So we met Miguel last weekend, and because of Miguel, Noah, and Adrian, this is actually happening. I was in a state of panic before them, so I love them dearly. Also, I want to shout out our pianist back here and read his bio, and then give him a big round of applause. Gio is a multi-instrumental musician who enjoys writing songs and exploring the workings of various styles of music. While COVID-19 delayed the production of his debut album, Gio is looking for new ways to deliver meaningful art during a trying chapter of history. Let's give it up for Gio. All right, so the format is I will bring the storyteller up, read their bio, give them a huge round of applause, then they will start talking. Sweet. Femi, Nassi, will you come up to stage? Yeah, whatever. I can clap it. Femi Nassi is an author, a poet, and a podcaster. With all her activities being related to storytelling, you'd think that she could write a short bio that makes sense. But I guess it's really hard to present yourself in 3 sentences when you are known as a very, very, trust me, very talkative person. You'll see what she means. Please welcome Femi to the stage.
On May 13th last year, I took a plane heading to Houston, and somewhere up there, between the turbulences and the silent cries, between the whispers and the peaceful clouds, I saw my end nearing. You know, the funny thing about death is how simple it is. One day you exist, the next one you don't. One day you are, the following not anymore. And while the talk of dying isn't something I often find appealing, that time I wasn't scared at all, because some part of me was relieved, knowing that I could finally let go of people's expectations of who I am and what I am to do with my life. I knew that once I died, I would no longer have to worry about goals, achievements, success, and fulfillment. I wouldn't have to worry about who to be anymore. Death. My death taught me that the words coming after I am are meaningless. They keep changing like seasons, no matter how hard we try to hang on to them. For about 19 years, I was Femi Nassi, student. Then in August 2015, as I stepped foot onto the soil of the great United States of America, I became Beninese. Then I learned that not knowing the Republic of Benin is not really a thing in this country, so I turned into an African. Turned out, being African doesn't really matter either, because the only thing that does is your skin tone. Therefore, I am not Beninese, not African. It looks like I'm black, and that's all people see. So needless to say, my concept of self got thrown away. After all, what does it mean to be black? Is it really just my skin or my accent as well? Maybe my hair, my lips, my nose? Is it the way I walk or the dreams I have? Is it the history, the weight on my shoulders? Is it the country, this country? I don't know, but the old me died, and it was painful. Fast forward 2 years later, I self-published my first book, When writing it, I had two main goals. The first one was to show a more realistic image of what the immigrant or international student life really looks like. And the second one was to help other Africans throughout their own journey of adaptation. It was to help people, to let them know that no matter where you live, you will have to fight for better opportunities. You will have to fight to succeed. So in March 2017, I became an author. Chisoke, The Awakening, was born. In it, I also searched for myself through culture shock, cultural identity, spirituality, and dear old racism. After all, a monkey who can write and talk the way I do should definitely share her story, don't you think? I've been wearing this new label for 3 years now. Through it, I awakened something in me that had been dormant for way too long. Potential. You see, I always knew I would accomplish a lot of great things in my life. I knew that I had a purpose to fulfill, a mission, a raison d'être. And Chisoke opened those doors for me. People started to see me. They were interested in me and what I had to say. They wanted to know my story, to hear my voice, and to pick my mind. So I gave it to them. I wrote and talked a lot, reading and informing myself, trying to find ways to continue what I thought had become my new mission. But when months after months, not much came out of me other than questioning and wondering, overthinking and doubting. When I no longer knew what project to bury myself into in order to keep helping others, to stay relevant and useful, I crashed. I found myself in the middle of an existential crisis, a creative void, and my identity took a toll. I no longer knew who I was and what I was to do with my life. For who am I without the words and the speaking? Without the projects and the goals? Who am I without the potential people saw in me? Not much, I thought. All I saw when looking at the mirror was a clown, an imposter. I had played that game for so long that I forgot that it was only in my mind, that I didn't really deserve the praises and hopes people saw in me, not the attention they gave me, nor the things that keep it up, you're an inspiration. I was a fraud, and the world was about to discover it. In 2018, I embarked on a new journey in which I discovered the other side of poetry. I had no mentor, no coach, no help except from social media. Now, the tricky thing about this life is how to stay unique, but not too much. Everywhere I looked, I saw a culture. I saw a way of performing that was so specific, so unique, so American that I knew I couldn't do it. I couldn't rhyme the way they do or speed up like them because we don't talk the same. My tongue can't roll the way theirs do. Instead, it curls up and takes some time, twists around and waits some more, kissing every letter like a broken printer. So maybe I'm not a poet. Maybe this whole spoken word poetry thing is just a phase because we only accept differences when they're not too different, right? And I just tend to go straight to other mode. I don't fit. So when I saw myself at the edge of that cliff, I jumped. Because I am tired of defining myself in a language that nobody. I am tired of trying to fit, to be, to exist. I mean, why does it have to be that hard to explain to others who I am? Simply put, I am Femi Nassi. No, I am Olufemi Nassi, Beninese, African, Black. I write and share emotions. I have many passions, but can't pick one to stick to. People say I have potential, but I guess only life will tell. I am a woman, but sometimes I dress like a man. I've been single for 4 years, maybe because I didn't do dates, but that's maybe because I'm just really scared of commitment. and ending up in a weird relationship in which my partner can deal with the greatness I have to offer this world. Or maybe, just maybe, it's because I'm scared that the day he discovers the other side of me, the not so bright side of me, the darkness inside of me, he gives up on me. So it's probably better to stay alone, because at least then I can work on my demons without anybody trying to exorcise me, right? I am lost between the tags I wear and those I am given, between the things I fight for and those I believe in. I am lost between who I am and who I see in the mirror, and all I see in the mirror is question marks and uncertainty. It is not fear I've gotten rid of her. Instead, it is this longing for the fire I once had, for today it is gone. Today I sit alone in a dark room, remembering the time when I had a purpose, a drive. I think about the dreams that kept me awake late at night and the goals for which I was ready to sacrifice even my life. Today I'm not sure about anything. I walk a path of complete ignorance, trying to keep my doubts and insecurities at bay, battling worries and anxiety on a daily basis, wondering if I'll ever get my fire back, but with the hope that if I do, it brings me more peace than the one I had before. Today, I stand in front of the girl staring at the mirror and tell her, if you ever wonder why mommy is the only daddy you knew, cringe every time they ask what you are. Close your eyes when the voices get too bright. Hope that the night will not last forever, yet sing only when the moon is full. Ask why they only call you girl black. Maybe your name is too hard to speak. Tell, like a spell nobody wants to cast. If you smile only when the lights are off, say I love you whenever your heart is bleeding, broken, bursting into 1,000 pieces. Cut your tongue off cause it always shoots daggers, nice, causing an explosion all over your mind. Hide your truth cause it rhymes with ruin. Back away from the reflection trying to kill you. Wait, it will not last. The sun will come back. You will heal. The pain will be washed. Your sins will be cleansed. Your heart will beat again. Thank you.
Damn. Give it up for Femi Nassi. Fucking awesome. How's this sound? Great. I also just want to give a shout out to everybody on Facebook and YouTube who are joining us. We have a huge audience and that's super exciting. I'm really hoping we can keep the money coming for the Mercury Cafe or the GoFundMe page and at Soul Stories. Let's make some money for them. Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, and I heard some people while Femi was talking go, and like snapping. Keep that going. Let's have that energy throughout the whole night. Please, can I have John Staughton to the stage? John is the content director of Stained Arts and a professional writer and editor. Aside from words, he loves building bookshelves, casually obsessing over his cat,
outside Biloxi, Mississippi. He would be awarded a posthumous Pulitzer 11 years later. I was 15 when I read The Rum Diary, On the Road, and Trout Fishing in America. I consumed A Movable Feast, To the Lighthouse, and The Bell Jar before graduating high school. I made my first attempt and failure at Infinite Jest at the ripe age of 20. A Confederacy of Dunces became a sacred text by 24. Growing up, I felt bound to each of those writers. Even before learning about their tragic ends, each had made their way to my piles of books, my hands, my conversations, and my dinner table. Morbid curiosity had not driven my reading choices, yet I had set a motley crew of doomed authors to rest on my nightstand. One writer led me stumbling into another as I pieced together their overlapping, generation-spanning stories from Paris and New York and Big Sur and London and New Orleans and Massachusetts. The lives of these far-flung literati held instant appeal, as the desire to travel and move and be anywhere else but wherever I was had been born in me early. To say that I worshipped words would be an understatement, and by proxy, I worshipped those who wrote them, faults and all. Not only did I devour their bodies of work, but their biographies as well. I wanted to peel back the skin of their words and see where the nerves met bone. That sweet spot where reality and fiction bleed together. I grew to know their lives, memorizing their sins and failures, their affairs and their ex-wives and their abandoned children, and their vicious means of self-destruction. There was a time when I could recite Hunter S. Thompson's entire suicide note by heart. One might assume my literary obsessions to be the symptom of an unhappy childhood, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Those writers became my constant companions, but I didn't turn to them for commiseration. My adoration was born of a curiosity for a life so different from my own, one on the other side of the fence, of the tracks, of the ocean. Believe it or not, I was once a glorious little nerd from the suburbs of Chicago, a lover of soccer, being on stage and watching nature shows. I sang in the school choir, I behaved in church, and I did not fight with my sister. I never knew the pain of poverty, family addiction, or the back of my father's hand. Statistically speaking, my life is pretty damn close to perfect. Mine was not a childhood that suggested a passion for fatal genius, though I was occasionally weighed down by existential angst, following a premature discovery of existentialism. All this exposition is to say I never expected to find myself playing chicken with suicide in a Washington motel room with a bottle of whiskey and the stash of meds I've lugged around since the Bush administration. Expired tramadol from a car accident in Paris, gabapentin from a Chicago shrink, codeine from London, OxyContin from the Caribbean, as well as handfuls of loose Xanax, Sudafed, and Vicodin from unremembered sources along the way. At most points in the past decade, I've been within arm's reach of all the pills I would need to end my life in an ecstatic daze. But it took until the age of 31 for me to roll those dice. By that point, the motel room in a forgotten corner of Washington, I'd been alone on the road for nearly 3 months. 11,000 miles were behind my run out of gas midsummer. My car had been stolen and recovered in the previous 24 hours, and I was approaching every edge I'd been teetering on since spring, namely mental exhaustion, emotional collapse, and physical destruction. I could no longer count the number of bruises or fresh scars on my body. I sped away from the scene of that latest betrayal in the direction of where home used to be. I made it less than 30 minutes before experiencing what I now know was a panic attack, my first ever, at 70 miles an hour, which chased me onto a shoulder where I gulped air and rolled the windows down before allowing the car to crawl towards the exit ramp ahead. The motel room attendant seemed to distrust me from the start, something shaky in my gaze, I imagine, but at $60 a night, he had seen plenty of vacant eyes passing through. There was a faded pastoral scene of a wagon train above the bed, not in a frame, but poorly painted, right on the smoke yellow cinder block wall that served as a headboard. The room was instantly depressing. But I slammed the door and sealed both locks like I found sanctuary at last, the promise of safety. I collapsed at the foot of the bed, shaking, and lit a cigarette. This is where the story turns, and where I feel inclined to describe the spliffs I rolled, with clammy fingers and my fists beating the pillows, and the mindless laughter, and the phone call that broke me, And the bloodshot hysteria, the first pill, the basic cable blare, that fetal phase on the floor, and the pacing and the chain smoking and the constant burn of whiskey pulled straight, the gagging, the poisonous conversation with myself out loud in my head, and then the second and the third capsules, the text messages written and then edited and then deleted and then edited, and then the fourth pill, or the fifth perhaps, another cigarette, another pill, a round one this time, a bloody knee on the cabinet, a stretch of black, and stars and pain, and all throughout, the constant tears and the exhaustion and the delirium that only comes once your body abandons a circadian rhythm, once you've dissected your own heart one too many times. Perhaps I should blame arrogance for never feeling truly capable of suicide until the moment was upon me. I may have known the suicidal stories from a dozen of my favorite writers, but I had never personally yearned for that cliche release of death. Life had dealt me hands of loneliness and loss, yes, but never a shattered heart or a broken home. I had no idea what that would feel like. I had no precedent for what my mind would do to itself, what it still does to itself. In the past, every choice to change major things, a lover, a zip code, a continent, had been made by me. But having the tapestry of my life unraveled so quickly by someone else's hand represented the ultimate loss of control. What followed was physics, not poetry, and one thing led to another, a chain reaction, an avalanche of chaos on full display. I wish I could tell you that I thought of the people I loved, of how badly my absence would hurt them, or of the destructive consequences that would result. I wish I'd reflected on the beauty in my life, or how fortunate I was in comparison to the suffering that billions of others bear around the world. I wish I could describe some great religious revelation of reborn faith, but none of that happened. I'm ashamed by all the things I didn't think. In the midst of that loneliest moment, I instead thought about what I would leave behind. I thought of whether the world would have any reason to remember my name for more than a few years. No kids, no house, no wife, no fucking Wikipedia page. An utterly forgettable life. Certainly not one that would ever be listed among my literary heroes. At the realization that my sandcastle legacy would be gone in a blink, I got angry. Sadness had been riding shotgun all summer, but I had punched most of my anger into a kitchen door back in April, and I'd done my best to leave it there. Staggering to the mirror, my eyes were alien, like I was being forced to look into a dark corner of someone else's life. I glared at the distorted glass, denying myself breath until the back of my throat ached. I reveled in the pain as distraction. I didn't recognize myself. 20 pounds lighter than I'd been in April, a slow-roasted face caked in days of sweat and dirt, blood-stained pants, and a shirt that exhaled smoke and booze. Reflection looked like a lie, contradicting all my youthful expectation, and the mind observing it felt destructive, yet somehow saw at the edges, losing its grip. My vision blurred and my fingers clung to the edge of the cliff. It wouldn't take much for me to rest. I could see fear flash in my eyes, the desperation of an animal on the side of the road, not dead, but dying. The last thing I remember was looking in the mirror and wondering if I was too late. The quick ending to this story is that I'm standing here to tell it. Yeah. But my capacity for suicide exists now, or at least the memory of it does. I may look the same as I did 2 years ago, but my mind is different. Of that I am sure. I reached that point where my nerves meet bone, and I managed to scramble back from the edge, unlike so many others. Rarely does the macrocosm help to understand the microcosm, but in this case it might. In the cosmos, there is a certain point beyond which we simply cannot see, the edge of the observable universe, about 47 billion light years away. However, as our universe expands, our capacity to gaze grows further with it, but only because time is passing. It must be remembered that the edge, the true end of our capacity to see and understand,
I have witnessed this mic, and this is not my first time on the stage, and I pray to God it's not the last. So basically, this is sacred. This place is sacred to so many people. And for those with extra dollars on the live stream, for those of you out among the world and the country, deeper pockets, extra dollars, anything you can. I know that times are tough all over, but give what you can. Because as far as I've seen, this place does nothing but give magic and hope to literally every person that walks in the door. So, thank you, and long live the Merc.
Let's give some more love to John. You guys have been so incredible, so present, so willing to be there and witness the story and the storyteller. I hope you're able to connect a part of yourself to these stories. Quick minute on tech. Are we good to go? All right, we've had some tech problems, but we're rolling. We're going through it. You're with us. We're on the ship. And please welcome Nadia Bolz-Weber to the stage. Nadia is the author of 3 New York Times best-selling memoirs and the host and creator of the Confessional podcast in association with The Moth. Check all that shit out. And please welcome Nadia to the stage.
When my mother discovered a box full of body bags and toe tags in her garage, she naturally assumed I knew why they were there. I always seemed to inhabit a world that was unfamiliar to my own mother. I was 23 at the time, and I had a few months of sobriety under my belt, but had already totaled a couple of her cars, dropped out of college, been arrested at a protest, and had somehow gotten involved in an armed land rights battle for a little while up in northern New Mexico. I can't recall what it meant at the time, but I once impersonated a gecko eating a head of cabbage at a feminist performance art event on this stage. Peggy, on the other hand, was raised in a coal mining camp in Kentucky. So her wild daughter was the only thing in her life that could possibly explain why a box of body bags and toe tags ended up in her suburban Denver garage. But honest to God, I had nothing to do with it. At first, Peggy seemed incredulous at my denial, but then also relieved when I said I'd come right over and deal with the mystery of the body bags. When I arrived at my parents' garage, I found a box sitting politely next to an old oil stain, its brown flaps opened to reveal 24 identical packages containing blue body bags, complete with, and this was the thrilling part, an illustration for how to place the toe tag on the cadaver. I also discovered that the address label was for Mr. Douglas, the guy who lived next door, who worked in medical supplies. He was so grateful when I returned the box to him that I took the opportunity to ask for a finder fee. Mr. Douglas, I said boldly, would it be okay if I kept one for myself? When he asked what for, I replied, well, obviously one of these would be the best white elephant gift ever. I held on to that little blue package for a very long time, as I wasn't someone who was invited to many white elephant dinners. But that was okay. I was patient. I knew the value of what I had. 5 years later, my life had taken a turn when I met my now ex-husband, then future husband, a very nice Lutheran seminary student from a small town in Texas. I chose a path with the nice Texan that led more toward oil stains on the garage of a suburban home than it led toward lizard-themed feminist performance art. 10 days after our wedding, we moved to Eugene, Oregon, where he became the intern pastor, and I became the intern pastor's wife who didn't look anything like a Lutheran. All I knew was that he was a nice guy and I didn't want to fuck it up for him. And the best way to not fuck it up for him was for me to pretend I was as normal as possible. Pretend I didn't have the past I did. Pretend I didn't sometimes have a dark heart. Pretend I could small talk. So I took what I now see as desperate measures. I removed my tongue ring. It was 1996 after all. I hid all my tattoos and I watched all my language. And I'm maybe a little ashamed of this, but I even bought clothes from the Gap. I settled into my life as the intern pastor's wife as best I could. On Sunday mornings, I smiled and attempted small talk, and on Tuesday nights, I showed up for church choir practice in camouflage, which for me was chinos and a cardigan. At the time, I was employed to cook meals for folks with HIV. We had a lovely little cottage called the Acorn Center where HIV-positive men and women could come and be with their fellows and eat a warm meal. When winter 1997 rolled around, I walked into my first Advent Vespers, not entirely sure what Advent was or what Vespers was. On those Wednesday nights in December, my now ex-husband and then new husband helped lead a small, peaceful prayer service. The greenery of an Advent wreath gleamed by the shifting light of the candles placed around the room. And there we gathered in a silence particular to the time of year when the days are so short. I would come to that prayer service straight from the Acorn Center, from chaos to stillness. The first time I sang one of the prayers, the Magnificat, Mary's song, the social revolutionary aspect of it sliced me open. The words said, "You have cast the mighty down from their thrones and uplifted the humble of heart. You have filled the hungry with wondrous things and left the wealthy no part." I thought it was the most radical and beautiful thing I'd ever heard. I did not know at the time that it was lifted straight from Luke's gospel and not just from some leftist songbook. And I cried the first time I sang it. Because during the day, I would feed emaciated junkies and gay men, many of whom were at the mercy of a heartless government system to meet their needs. And then on Wednesday evenings, I'd sing of a God who fills the hungry and uplifts the humble, and singing that made the rest of my week make more sense. It somehow made me make more sense because it knit together these two worlds I lived in. And I soon found myself falling in love with both my clients at the Acorn Center and with the old ladies at United Lutheran Church. Perhaps I was wrong to think that I had to hide who I was. The smiles on Sunday morning were coming with more ease, even if the small talk never did. On the final week of Advent, it was announced that the church's yearly white elephant dinner would be held on New Year's Day. This was it. My hour had come. We gathered at the home of a retired sociology professor from church, filled our little plates with baby carrots and cucumber sandwiches, and eventually sat in a circle for the main event. My confidence was high. Of all the odd, ironic, hilarious gifts that I was certain sat wrapped at our feet, surely a body bag and toe tag, complete with illustrated instructions, would carry the day. And the rules were clear. One's turn consists of either choosing a random gift to unwrap or stealing an already unwrapped gift in the possession of someone whose turn came before you. The first person took their turn and unwrapped what appeared to be a small statue of African origin. Everyone roared with laughter. A fluke, surely, a polite response to a very unfortunate white elephant gift, I was sure. Next to be revealed was a small pillow covered in a Mexican flag. More laughter. The African statue lady traded for the Mexican flag pillow. As each gift was unwrapped, one piece of ethnic art after another, my heart sank and my blood pressure rose. I had drawn one of the last numbers. I could do nothing but watch it all happen. Finally, it was my turn to reach for a gift, a small box about the size of a pack of Marlboros. I unwrapped not a piece of ethnic art, but a bar of fancy rose-scented soap. Soap, for fuck's sake. Then the octogenarian next to me reached for my most perfect white elephant gift ever, which I'd wrapped in the cheeriest, most ironic snowman paper I could find. Her shaking, papery hands took eerily long to unwrap the contents. She then turned it over several times as if its secrets could be revealed that way. I realized that, barring a freak accident, she was definitely the closest to death of all of us. "What is it, Betty?" a voice asked from behind the sofa. "Well, I don't," she struggled to name what she had unwrapped. "I think it's a shroud." Silence, confusion, panic. No one knew it was mine. I mean, I think no one knew it was mine. Oh, shit. Do I hide behind my cardigan and let my perfect white elephant gift go to waste? I had a split second to decide what to do. My arm shot up before I even knew I had made a decision. "I'll trade you for this fancy soap." I heard mutters of, "What in the world? Why would anyone want that? That soap is so nice." Then the retired sociology professor said knowingly to his wife, "Oh, I think I know why Nadia wants it. I think it's for her job." No, I didn't need a body bag for my clients at the HIV Alliance. But I did keep that body bag and toe tag for years because I'm still not someone who is invited to many white elephant dinners, but that's okay. I'm patient. I know the value of what I have. And there is no cardigan in the world that could or should ever hide it. Thank you. Thank you. Just a quick thing. I am unwilling to imagine a Denver where the Mercury Cafe doesn't exist. If you don't know, this place has been around for a long time, and this is her, I think, 4th establishment in Denver. So she has Marilyn has created a home in Denver for artists, for filmmakers, for musicians, for queer kids who need a waitressing job, for people who actually want to eat food made out of food, for Ralph Nader to have his campaign rally when he was here in Denver. I mean, this place is important. And it has been a home for so many of us. I waited tables here another lifetime ago. I performed on the stage impersonating a gecko once, eating cabbage. And I love it with all my heart. So I donated money tonight, and if you're able to, please help us save our home. Thank you.
Give it up for Nadia Bolz-Weber one more time. Woo! All right, can I have Taylor Heussner to the stage? Taylor Heussner helps out at Stained Arts and moonlights as a project manager during the work week for a marketing agency. She used quarantine to adopt a new puppy and now spends her life playing with that said puppy and her cat in attempts to form a friendship between the two opposite animals. This blossoming friendship brings her hope that maybe humans in the world can also form friendships no matter how different their experiences and understanding are. I'm gonna add a quick note. I look forward to Taylor's Instagram stories every single day about this cat and this dog, so please follow her on Instagram. Without further ado, give a huge round of applause for Taylor Heussner.
Thanks. It's at Taehue, just for the cat content. Okay. Have you ever felt feral? A vestigial feeling, one that harkens to who you might have been in the eyes of those who lived thousands of years before you. When anger was survival, anxiety a warning sign, pain a reminder that you were still alive. Today, these emotions are a little bit pointless. It can darken the color of your soul when it's felt. At least it did when the howls ripped out my lungs, tore straight through my mouth and into the air. A vibration dug up the skeletons beneath the red earth. The jail cell didn't have bars. It had a thick door painted a cream yellow with the size of 2 feet. On the left side of the 4x8 room sat a bench, a toilet on the back wall, the type where you just squat right into it, and nothing on the right except my body, my feet and shins under my thighs, my hands and arms stacked over my head, my hair pulled and tangled in front of my eyes. I would go in and out of dreams of pain and yelling, some archaic emotion or being that I wasn't aware of had been lying dormant inside of me as if it were waiting for this fissure. This break in emotional tide brought me back to when I was a little girl. I'd wake up rapidly in the middle of the night with a short breath, scared shitless of a demon that I swore was in my room, shouting over my sleeping body. I'd clutch at my heart because it felt like someone was pressing down on my chest, and I often ran to my parents' room for escape from these imprisoning thoughts. One panic thought after another would circle and build through my mind, intermingled with the prayer. Dear God, I promise to be nicer to my brother. Another thick rock planted on top of my chest. Dear God, I promise to do things the first time when asked. Another tree root wrapped around my lungs. Dear God, I promise to always think of you. Anxious wind coursed through my open mouth and closed my throat shut. Of course, I now realize these panic attacks weren't because there was a demon in my room, but because in church I was taught about Satan, and if you sinned a certain sin, acted a certain way, you were under his control. It was terrifying to think I had this all-knowing being watching over me, taking delight in my mistakes. In my imagination, this unraveled without control. Now, I don't think my parents ever wanted me to be fearful or anxious, but this anxiety sure did help and gave me to do my homework, get straight A's, not grow up to drink and smoke and do drugs like the other sinners, until I did. I was in jail for a total of 13 hours. I didn't once piss during this time, and my body had the shakes. You think you own everything until you're stripped, hosed down, ass checked, and left in a locked room. It was not hard feeling self-pity. You're inebriated and thinking of all the severe consequences that will happen after this. This was going to be the easy part. Calling your father was going to be the easy part. Side note, not peeing was one of the hardest parts. I was arrested for a DUI and I wanted to keep it at that. Anytime you're first booked in jail and go to the bathroom within 24 hours, they take a urine sample. I didn't want to also have a drug charge. I had cocaine and ecstasy in my system, but even then I was glad I was on drugs for a layer of safety. I wasn't showing my real face. The cops didn't know who I was. This wasn't me. Of course this wasn't me. But my panic started to spiral out in the cell. What have you done? What have you done? I cried, rocking my body back and forth on the cold cement floor. Drawn back into a time when only instinct and survival existed, my shame enveloped me like a cave. Don't think about tomorrow. But my panic started, sorry. The most unnerving part was how entirely alone I was. I wouldn't be able to escape this prison. I could only yell out to God, and Maybe if I promised him enough changes, he'd talk back. I could hear him so clearly as a child, but now as an adult, his voice was as if it were a decaying fossil in my outstretched palms, reminding me of memories and possibilities, but leaving me with nothing to offer the present. I'll come back to church, I yelled. I do believe in you, I whispered. I had become the person the people at church often gossiped about. A fake, a fraud, even a damn Christ Easter. This was a term said to me on multiple occasions to describe someone who only attended church at Christmas and Easter. The amount of times I had come to Jesus moments in my life is a little cringeworthy. People would put their praying hands together, you'd be in the middle of the circle, you'd repent all your sins and feel like you belong somewhere. That Jesus loved you no matter what happened in the world, and feeling that sort of love is very powerful and intoxicating. Sometimes I would cry from this chaotic love and amount of emotion I felt. I left these worship services and youth group gatherings feeling a tribal connection to the humans around me. Together, we were prayed to any predator or evil that may lurk. Together, we were protected. The come down, the anxiety, this wouldn't hit me until I was alone. For a myriad of reasons and struggles that surfaced mostly from a sexual assault when I was 18, I started replacing drug use for that all-consuming love I felt from God. I became angry. In the following few years, I blamed him for the trauma that happened. All the prayers and the praise, the hours of service and devotion, it all ended in pain. What was the point of it all? I left the youth group. They would think I was a slut one day. Or at the very least, they would think their Jesus circles failed me. They didn't want to reconcile with the question that if God wasn't enough, then what was? For a while, I grappled with excusing my actions every time I snorted a line or ate a pill. Was what I was doing going to send me to hell? Was I too far gone that if all I was taught were true, I'd be fucked? I could still repent one day, couldn't I? But it became difficult to remember what self-worth felt like when I exchanged it for a different reality, and soon I forgot altogether what sober emotions and guilt felt like. Take my confidence, get some ecstasy, take my intelligence, get some cocaine, take my identity, get some more cocaine. I became good at living multiple lives. Perhaps I was a fraud. I didn't want my family to know I was forming a drug addiction. I didn't want my professors to know that I was a sham. I didn't want God to know that I didn't really believe in him anymore. Even reading that right now scares the shit out of me. As if that demon in my childhood room has followed me out of that home and into my choices. He was with me in that jail cell. Rather, I had become him. That was who I was when I was arrested. That was who came out of the fissure in my chest. The broken motions spelled out sinner. I was the one causing myself fear and anxiety. I was the one who made the decision to drive that night. The jail cell would either become a burial ground or a birthing bed for my addictions. I tried to be good because of fear, but no demon or Satan or God that I blamed things on could change my actions. That thought started to redefine who I thought I was as my father picked me up the next day. In all of these expectations and all of the drugs, I was chasing a feeling, that feeling of togetherness, of knowing that you don't have to walk through life alone. Those Jesus circles gave me such a high, so did the drugs, so did religion. Our society is so isolating. Like a yellow cream door locked shut, no one can hear you yell or pray your way throughout the day. Religion gave me a tribe of humans that seemed like they cared so intensely about me. Drugs introduced me into a group of humans that also seemed like this. I'm going through the grieving process of a woman I might have chosen to be, digging a grave into the dirt, unturning the layers that created me. I realized I don't want to survive on just anger or pain anymore. It's pointless. If I chose different expectations to follow, if I realized sooner that this feeling of being loved or being the best or being confident is fleeting and constantly the same emotion for everyone. Maybe I could have been that girl who got rid of the demon by looking him straight in the eyes, rather than having to kill him from the inside out. Thanks.
Give some more love for Taylor. I fucking love Liminal so much and appreciate everyone who comes up here to share their stories, to be vulnerable, to, just take up space up here. Can we please have Shelsea Ochoa to the stage? Shelsea Ochoa is an educator, an organizer, and a performance artist. She is madly in things such as community, intersectionality, astronomy, justice, and purslane. She dreams of a world where the Suncor power plant in North Denver has been shut down and transformed into a jungle gym covered in high oxygen producing plants. You can join the Facebook group Suncor Watch to learn more fun facts about how Suncor is putting toxins in the air you are breathing right now. You can also find Shelsea facilitating conversations for healing and change by searching for Soul Stories Denver, which you might have heard of. Please give a huge round of applause for Shelsea Ochoa.
Oh, the Merc! Yay. I feel like this is the first place I ever felt at home in Denver. I'm so glad to be here and be celebrating this space. This story is 2 years old and it feels so retro. I'm like, damn, I haven't thought about this stuff in a while. Here we go. I am an educator at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. It is my job to inspire people, to have the courage to learn about science, which is sometimes intimidating. I'm in a room of about 30 people, and I'm doing a presentation about astronomy, and somebody pushes his way to the front, and he says, "Excuse me." Hey, yeah, if the world is really round, then how come I can still see ships way far off in the distance? I paused, thinking maybe, I paused for various reasons. First of all, maybe he was gonna say, just kidding, gotcha. Maybe I've also paused because I felt defensive. He kind of came at me. And as a female person speaking as an authority about science to the general public, including lots of older men, I'm very used to older men feeling like they want to correct me on things that I spend my life teaching people about. I also just felt a little protective because I looked around and I saw the faces of everybody else in the room. And their faces were of anger and of disgust and of confusion. And this man reminded me of my mother. My mother was my caretaker. She was the person who looked after me and loved me the most, and I loved her more than I have ever loved anyone in my life. She taught me about unconditional love and acceptance. She was my rock and my cheerleader and my best friend. And as I got older, I came to understand that my mother also had some pretty severe mental health issues. But when I was young, my perception of that was that all these people out here are always calling my mom crazy. And my stance was, you will not call my mother crazy. You do not understand the trauma that she went through in her life. You do not understand what a good person she is, or at least what a good person she used to be before she got really sick. And in my adult life, she really started to spiral out of control. And I felt myself reaching for her for years as she slipped away from herself and from everyone who loved her and from society at large. A few months before this man came along in the museum, I had a rare phone call with my mother, and she asserted to me that the world was indeed flat. And in that moment, I felt so disgusted and ashamed, like I would never want anyone to know this about my mom. And that was the moment that I realized that I had really, truly lost her, and that I really needed to wake up to the mental health issues that she was displaying, and that she was taking such a huge 180 that she was becoming someone that was no longer the mother that raised me. As she became more aggressive and sometimes violent and deeply disturbing, she got to a point where most people were unwilling to speak to her. Even my siblings are unwilling to talk to her. She became the person that often get those looks that those people were giving to that guy. So I'm back at the museum. There's this long moment of pause. It's like, wah, 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 wah. Everyone's like staring at him and staring at me. And I start to try to, answer in my formal way, and understanding that a big part of helping people cross the bridge into science is building trust. And so I start by saying, hey, that's a really interesting question that a lot of people ask. But before I could even get the sentence out, he was like, yeah, that's what I thought. And then he just walked away. He was not ready to have a heart-opening, transformative conversation at the time. But I did realize how important it is to keep that door open, just in case he might be willing to come back for another conversation. At that time, flat earthers now seem very retro, but at the time, flat earthers were like a big thing. And in the museum, people were putting up "the world is flat" stickers on our dioramas, and it was a very tense time. But there's also a man that works at the museum who was raised in a religion that thought that dinosaurs were a myth. But his parents took him to see the dinosaurs at the museum to show him all of this falsehood that Satan had put out in the world. And now he's a paleontologist and he works at a museum because he saw those dinosaur bones. So the importance of keeping that door open, even for the darkest and most disturbing of us. In this country, we are at a liminal point. We seem to be splitting farther and farther away from each other, and there's this gap that is becoming a canyon. How do we bridge that gap? As for my mom, at the time of writing this in 2018, I have no idea where she is. She is roaming the streets somewhere between the United States and Mexico, running away from her own paranoid ideas. But if you see a woman out there in the streets who may not seem like she's got her head together, please just don't push her away and tell her that she's crazy. Maybe you could even show her a little bit of love that I wish I could do. So that's a story I told in 2018, and I've been thinking about how it connects to what's happening in our world today. Nobody's talking about flat earthers anymore. Right now, everybody's talking about racism. And racism and miseducation around science, I think, are both very problematic things in our world, but there is a big difference, which is that racism is killing people right now and has always been killing people. They do have some things in common. They're both based off of ignorant ideas, misinformation. They're both based on the idea that there is no trust, not trusting the people outside of you. They are both contagious diseases, and they are both curable. There are two approaches that I'm seeing. I don't know if anyone else has noticed these things. There are two approaches that are these practices of anti-racism, and I think that they're both valid. One of them I call the punch and Nazi idea. Sometimes you got to punch a Nazi, right? And I think that, in extreme cases, when we are seeing these ideas become normalized, you got to shut that shit down. There cannot be space for racism in our communities. This is not a dialogue. We are not here to debate whether Black Lives Matter. And I think that there is another thing that I would like to bring into the space, which is the idea of leaving the door open. And this is for those of us who feel that we have capacity. It's an opt-in kind of thing. This is responding to the idea that racism exists within all of us. And if we are going to erase all of the racists, then we are going to erase the entire country. It exists from the idea that Trump supporters are now raising babies. And those babies are going to grow up and they're going to need someone to help them unpack all of that racism that we are all learning. And so how does one heal from racism? I believe that the first thing that you have to do is really build trust. Because in order to really unpack our racism, we have to be vulnerable. And that really fucking sucks when you're talking to somebody who's racist. Because I don't feel like I want to give you compassion right now. I don't feel like I have patience for you right now. But if we can find it within us to do the work, to talk to people, in some cases, I do believe that racism is healable. So let's ask ourselves, first of all, am I a white person? Have I experienced a high amount of privilege in my life upon the backs of other people? Do I feel that I have a certain sense of responsibility to create change in this world? And do I feel that I have the emotional capacity to engage in doing work on myself and also helping other white people do work on their racism? If the answer to that is yes, my hope is that some of us, maybe not all of us, can leave the door open to reach out to people who are sick with the disease of racism. Thank you.
Keep it going for Shelsea Ochoa. All right, so that concludes the first half of our section. We have 9 storytellers tonight. That was our first 5. Let's give it up for all of our first 5 storytellers. Please keep the donations coming. Click on the GoFundMe link or on our live stream or Venmo at Soul Stories. I'm going to invite Delia up here to talk a little bit more about the Merc. Let's give it up for Delia. So take 5 minutes as well if you need to use the bathroom, get a drink. Delia will be holding the stage down until we get back from the intermission.
Yeah, we're not really giving you an intermission, but if you have to pee, go pee. How's it going out there? Are you liking it so far? How's it going in the live stream? Yeah, great. They love it. This is hard. It's so many things to balance. It's like event hosting on really an entirely new level. It's a lot to keep up with. In preparation for this event, we asked a bunch of people to give us their reflections on the Mercury Cafe and what it means to them. And if it's okay, I'm going to read 3 of those. And each of these people happen to be storytellers tomorrow. So if you like the way they speak, come back tomorrow. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to tell you something really cool. Stained Arts does all sorts of awesome things. Pop in creative ideas all the time, events, random projects, all sorts of things. This summer, we came up with a mobile bookstore, which is over here in the corner. We love it. It's wonderful. It shows up at events all over town. Any book that you buy there, we donate the money to a nonprofit of our choice each month. This month, though the Mercury Cafe is not a nonprofit, we decided to donate all of the funds collected in the month of September to the Merc. So go check it out. They're really beautiful books in there. We have a baseline of $5, and then you just donate on top of that. There's wonderful reads. So yeah, we love it. We love it. Okay, I'm going to read a brief testimonial from a Mr. Bryce Mayuro. I've said this before, but I see Mutiny Information Cafe as my Denver dad, and I see the Mercury Cafe as my Denver mom. I mean that with a lot of respect for a safe space that has, for decades, helped people, including myself, to find love, to grow, to find community, and to be a space of grace where we can really approach the difficult topic of life. I largely found Denver poetry through the Mercury Cafe. I think a lot about that beautiful podium on the stage in the Jungle Room. I have set down so many pieces of writing where I poured my heart out or said the hardest thing to say. Every time I step up to that podium, I feel incredibly blessed that I get to stand in the same spot of so many people who have influenced me and shown me how to be somebody who could maybe change the world. I love the Merc. It feels as if there is a warmth that permeates every nook and cranny of that beautiful building. It is an institution that runs on 3 things: sun, wind, and a lot of love. Yes, we love the Merc. Love it. Love the Merc. Yeah. So far, I think we've raised a little over $500, which is awesome. We love it. We appreciate it. We think that you can do a lot more. There's tons of people on the live stream. There's tons of people who are just soaking up the energy of this place. So, you know, anything that you can offer, it's really deeply appreciated. And we feel the weight of what it would be without the Merc here. So it's in our power. We can do it. It's this is community knitting together. And I believe in that. This is from Aries Reyes, who will also be here tomorrow evening. They say, the first time I walked up the staircase of the Mercury into the roses and the lights, I saw a dance floor jammed with beautiful humans, shoulder to shoulder and hip to hip. It was literally magic to me. Once I moved here, I went to the Mercury nearly every week to dance. Each time I saw a new to me detail, a perfectly chosen piece of art, a nook of tables that invited deep conversation, so many treasures that suffused even more magic into the space. On a deeply ordinary Thursday, I stayed way past midnight to dance close to the stage. The magenta light bathed my partner's face, and I wanted that moment to linger as long as I could stand. To me, that is the wonder of the Mercury, that every Thursday could feel like a fantasy, a wonderful dream. Yeah. I'm going to read one more, and then I'm going to go sit down. Thank you, Danny. I appreciate the support in the back. And hi to my mom and dad. This is from Stained Art's very own Mr. Noah Kaplan. Mercury Cafe showed me how to use my voice when I was 16 on Friday nights at 10 p.m. during the longest running open mic in the city. I'd find my way there during lonely, dark moments or brave moments, and I'd get to the microphone to see and be seen there when I felt different or far away. The number of people who have found a home in that place, been comforted there, is immeasurable. The spirit of this city lives in part in those curtains. We've all left a part of ourselves there. We need places where one can stumble into and find their voice, find their bodies, find each other without shame. A place we can go to celebrate life outside the confines of society's symmetry. It is a haven for difference, a dock for all ships. If lost, the Mercury Cafe will leave behind a less welcoming, less exciting, less expressive, less soulful world, but we will be better for having known her. Let's make sure that she does not get lost.
We're going to come back in a couple minutes. All right. How's everyone doing out there? Ooh, yeah, like 4 people clapping. Are there more people? Maybe 7 or 8 or 9? Woo! Thanks for hanging with us. This is the second half. This is the home stretch. This is where we all bring it in because these last 4 storytellers are worth the time, the energy, and all of your presence. So let's give them some fucking love tonight, okay? Does that sound good? All right, if I can organize my sheets of paper. This is like how you know I have anxiety, is how I organize my paper. All right, where's Hannah Skewes at? Can you come up to the stage, Hannah Skewes? Let's give it some love. All right. Wait, I have this, okay. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Danny.
Hannah Skewes is a writer, photographer, and chronic overthinker in Denver. She owns an expensive camera, but complains that she has no decent photos of herself. These days, she's focused on art and activism, mental health awareness, and violence prevention. Please give your loudest round of applause right now for Hannah Skewes.
You're taller than I remember, Danny. Can you guys see me okay? Yeah? So I am someone who is still kind of growing into my identity as an artist. I still don't know what that means most days, but it's places like the Mercury that have let me open up just a little bit over the last few years. And it would really mean a lot if you gave a little bit to keep it going, because we need places like this in Denver. And this is my story. Black holes look remarkably like wombs. New Orleans has always been one of my favorite cities. It's dirty, dark, steep below sea level and despair, somehow vibrant and full in a shell of damp ground and low clouds that contain centuries of life lived on jazz music, voodoo, decadent food, rampant corruption, and a comfort with finality. It somehow both reveres and caricatures death. It felt like an appropriate place to tell my mother about my own little piece of despair I'd been keeping tucked away in its own little shell. My mom loved my husband as her own, someone who ensured safe harbor as I moved into adulthood, a guy with his head screwed on straight. It was easy veneer to hide the building mechanisms of control, the seeds of emotional abuse, the growing sense of entitlement to my body. It was easy for a while to pretend not to see the strings he pulled, to inject life into the elaborate scenes in his head of what life should be. One of those great dramas was Our Life with Children, an abstract I think I pretended to understand more clearly than possible. And so a few weeks before my 25th birthday, I had an abortion. My first and only pregnancy was over within a week of a positive test, wicked away by pills, and replaced with empty space. The ambiguity I traded for what was growing inside of me still feels like an incomplete answer to whatever we claim the difference is between right and wrong, of bad and good choices. And the clinical efficiency of the whole process seems to clash so violently with the messes we make in the process of separating out the black and white of it all, of defining choice with anything other than gray matter. It is a bizarre social calculus, sorting people onto one side or the other of a fault line, dividing those who would tell me I am entitled to agency over my own body, and those who would call me a killer. I was married, living with my then husband in my mother's house in South Mississippi. We had just sold our house and were making plans to move 1,400 miles away to Colorado. I had to go to a clinic in Mobile, Alabama, on a busy street where I remember feeling like it would be easy for the whole world to stop and stand and wait for me in the parking lot, along with all of the white men holding up large graphic posters with bold warnings about my path towards eternal damnation. Handmade posters, these grotesque art projects, held up as a sort of mirror to reflect both the horror and faultlessness of my insides, finished with time and effort and so much faith in their rightness. Visits to the clinic. One was an hours-long procession of jumping through the legal checkpoints Alabama has enshrined in the hopes that you will veer off this path before you complicate your own definition of humanity, including a clinical invasion of my womb during an ultrasound to find out just how far along, how big, if he or she was destined to be a healthy human, given the opportunity. The nurse, with her eyes on the screen, asked the same question state law requires she ask any woman that would ever lie on that table. Do you want to see it? I'd already seen the hazy mix of grays in my periphery, and I figured that was enough. On my second visit, leaving with pills tucked in my bag, a man yelled out to me, "Are you killing babies in there?" I wasn't sure if he meant in the building or in my body, and I wanted to yell back, "Not yet." I was young and healthy, likely able to carry a baby all the way from conception into a family unit that theoretically could have made a nice place to be. But I didn't. No one seemed interested in asking me why. Instead, I booked a hotel room, writhed in pain for hours with a hot water ball glued to my stomach, hot water bottle glued to my tumbling stomach, made trips to the bathroom that gave me only a small idea of the physical pain other mothers-to-be might feel without the intention. And then the divorce when I was 27. The next 2 years included the kind of trauma that rattles every atom within you, almost changes your entire molecular structure. It was another 3 years after that, at age 30, sitting in an oversized leather couch in an old New Orleans hotel, that I realized the lasting imprint of it. My mom's question was not about why I didn't want the kid. It was about why I had waited so long to tell her. A few years later, after giving up the pieces of adulthood that made me a homeowner and a wife and someone others trusted because I had my shit together on a surface level, a college friend who also ended up in Colorado got pregnant after a first date. I remember sitting on her bed as she leaned against the wall, positive test in hand, and she collapsed against it. Loud sigh packed with all the inherent conflicts that come with deciding whether or not you want to be a mother. And I recognized it, that question that keeps your eyes from focusing on anything and searches for all the answers that you need that aren't there. I told her it was okay if she wanted to keep the life she had and admitted to my own abortion, something I had never said out loud before. I couldn't comfort her, not right then. But a little selfishly, I felt lighter, a little freer, like I was standing up straighter after carrying around something for a little too long. My friend ended up giving birth to a beautiful, funny, defiant little girl, and I love seeing her grow up. She made the choice to be a mother and does it profoundly well. I'm not convinced that I would have. But as she pointed out to me, she wasn't entirely sure that she would be a good mother either. I often think of her as linked to my own choice given how different our circumstances were. She told me that she never imagined she would be in that situation, that she wanted children just not like this, with an unsupportive family and a biological father who she knew would never be in her child's life. I, on the other hand, would have had all the familial support I could have ever asked for. I would have been with someone who absolutely wanted to be a father. But the darkness at the center of that whole situation, the black hole into which all of my choices as an adult would eventually collapse, might have consumed an innocent child too. I struggle in explaining why I feel so connected to this friend in this way, or to vocalize the feeling that excavating a fever dream for my own body is the closest I've ever come to a maternal instinct. Maybe we get ourselves into too much trouble when we try to define the nature of choice, the impact of the unborn, and the consequences of defining human life. And I think about my own conversation with my mother in New Orleans, an hour away from my birthplace, with jazz music and delicious food scattered everywhere, with churches on every corner and people who ask about the last time you went to a service when you're just trying to get to the grocery line, where men stand on street corners and mentally invade my womb with their judgment and their handmade signs. We talked about the 2 miscarriages she had before giving birth to my older and only brother, and how she wanted me to honor my own body. What had hurt her most was that he, a man she used to love as her own, convinced me not to tell her, and that I honored it for 5 whole years. And I just can't fathom the depth of her love, no matter how much I've attempted to wrap my head around it. I don't know how to love someone like she loves me. Although I guess I never said I couldn't learn. To say that I have no regrets would be a tragic oversimplification. And at the same time, if I were forced to relive it, I know that I would make the same choice again. And I don't know what that means. Thank you.
Give another round of applause for him. That was gorgeous. Thank you, Hannah, for sharing that. Continue to donate at Soul Stories for Venmo. GoFundMe page is in the comments. If you're on with us with Facebook Live, stay with us. If you're on Facebook Live, we appreciate everybody here with us tonight. And please welcome to the stage, Kriste Peoples. Kriste Peoples is a Denver-based writer, producer, and runner. Whether outside in the high-altitude beauty of Colorado's mountain trails or deep beneath any of the many hats she wears, her jam is exploring the unseen, rich, and magnificently messy terrain of the human experience with people who are called to expand, discover, become, and be. Give some more love to Kriste Peoples.
Thank you, Danny. Yeah. So the first time I came to the Mercury Cafe, I was new in town. I didn't really know anybody. I was looking for some kind of connection. And I came to one of those open mic nights. And there was somebody on the stage who I think maybe they had been studying guitar for like as long as it took them to get up to the stage. I was like, what in the fuck? How can you do that? What kind of place would allow? I mean, and so that was indicative of how special the Mercury Cafe is, because everybody was silent and like really paying attention while this person is like trying to figure out that fingers actually are supposed to do something. And I came away with a really warm feeling. I was looking around the room at everybody who was just focused so deeply and so intently on this artist. And I felt great just being a part of that, knowing that such a magical space exists. I was also here 2 years ago to participate in a Soul Stories and Liminal event. And we were sharing our stories around a particular theme, and that theme was belief. And what was doubly exciting about it, in addition to being able to share my story, was that they put it all together in a little book. And I can't tell you how many times I have touched this book, I have smiled at this book, I have loved this book, but I haven't read the story since it went into the book. So I'm very excited to be here tonight. And I just want to say, for anybody who is able, share a little bit of your heart and your support with the Mercury Cafe to keep these doors open, because there is nothing like it anywhere close, period. So my name is Kriste, and I am a loser. It wasn't always this way, and to understand my story better, I need to take you back to the starting point, which, truth be told, isn't 3 months ago or even last year. The most accurate point of origin would put us at the time of Eve in the garden, when she got her first taste of shame, self-doubt, and the naked truth. But I'm short on time, so I'll keep it current. It was last year, December 28th, and after weeks of walking and hiking and running, we were nearing the end of our month-long challenge to complete 10,000 steps a day. It was a virtual thing, and our group had been tracking progress in a shared spreadsheet. There were maybe 30 of us at the start, and then 20, and then barely 2 or 3 weeks in, by our last count, there were no more than 8 real contenders left. Of those 8, I was near the lead. Now, I'm a women's running coach, and if you know me at all, then you'd know I'm a natural cheerleader. By default, I'm generally helpful and mostly non-threatening. I am the wind beneath your wings. I'm the wind in your sails. I'm the wind at your back. I have got lots of wind. So it's the 28th, and it's nearly 10 o'clock at night when I get a note on our Facebook page from, we'll call her Tanya, one of the participants. Hey, Kriste, it goes, make sure you log your miles for the past week because I've noticed you haven't been entering them lately. So I go into the spreadsheet and I see that next to her, I am the only one close to winning. Then it hits me. She wasn't offering me an innocent, friendly reminder. She was angling to secure the win. Her ambitiousness was naked, shameless balls. Suddenly, I had been plunged into a competition that I hadn't counted on, and it felt aggressive, unteamly, because weren't we in this together, being each other's cheerleaders? And wind, liking every stupid post, offering can-do-ity feedback at every perceived slump and setback. This wasn't a cutthroat competition. I wanted no parts of it. Until Tanya showed up with her bare-ass ambition. Now, a trigger. A trigger is something that sets off a memory or flashback that can transport a person, me, back to the point of the event of the original trauma. Triggers are very personal. Now, different things trigger different responses in different people, of course, and the survivor may begin to avoid situations, i.e. cutthroat step challenge competitions, and stimuli that she thinks might have triggered the flashback. Now, put another way, Tanya and her friendly ass reminder was pissing me off. I lay awake, running the gamut of emotions that were shooting through me like fire water. Who is this bitch policing my steps? Well, I should let her win. She's been on a weight loss journey, and this would mean so much to her. She doesn't care how I'm doing. She just wants to crush me. I don't even belong in this competition. Never once had I thought of reasons why I should win. Worse yet, it took something as innocuous as a step challenge to show me what a small game I'd been playing with myself for way too long. Her direct hit had knocked my blinder sideways just enough to see my high road humility had all been bullshit. Why couldn't I want something as openly, as shamelessly as she had? Okay? How long had I been hacking myself or backing myself into corners without taking a real chance at first place or at any place? Where had it come from? This look, don't look, self-deprecation, devaluation, and outright auto-neurotic self-dismissal. Fuck this shit, I said. That's what it says here. I am going to win. Okay? I threw the covers off and dove into the spreadsheet. See what I did there? So I was reading this thing. I was like, oh, yeah. I see what you're doing. Okay. By my calculations, I needed more than 30,000 steps for the win. So if you follow the math, that translates to about 15 miles. And for an ordinary Thursday, that meant I was going to have to get creative. That night, I looked up a gym with an indoor track. I packed a bag of exercise clothes and I hung it on the doorknob so I wouldn't miss it on my way to work. I laid out an extra set of running clothes across my bed so I'd have fewer excuses in the morning when I tackled my first round of miles. I called my brother Carl after running the first 7 miles that morning. We had run a 10K together a few years ago, and we made up a game. Well, we as in I made up a game that we played in the last couple of miles when he got tired. It was a way to stay motivated, so we would pick runners to pass and let them be our focus for a few hundred yards at a time. What got me, I told him, was you picked people blocks ahead of us, while the ones I spotted were barely an arm's reach away. And I wasn't even tired. You made us work for it, I told him. And I told him how I realized that I had been picking safe bets for a long time, and that somewhere in me, I hadn't believed that I deserved to win. Right? This isn't just bullshit step challenge. This is deep, right? Okay. See what I'm doing? See what I'm doing? Okay. So yeah, I had been afraid. Yeah, he said, and who are you to let her win? I know, I said. It's crazy, right? Yeah, he said. You're disrespecting her and the process by cheating. Now that got my hackles up because I am many things, but I am not a cheater. Sometimes it's only family who can call you out in order for you to really get it. Now, I would go on to walk 3 miles at work and then take my crusade to the indoor track for 8 more just to clinch the deal. Now that's 18,000 more steps, which rounds out to a full 18 miles in the end that day on a so-called normal Thursday. And here's the other thing, that fucking track, that indoor track that I was on that night, it required 80 laps for me to get those miles because 10 trips around it equaled 1 mile. Now that's commitment. So 80 laps for 18,000 steps for 18 miles for the win. Now, the first few laps were easy, and then the monotony of running in circles set in because you couldn't even turn back around. They had certain days where you could only go this way on Thursdays. You couldn't go this way and that way. You could only go one way on Thursday. So I told myself that every step was stomping out old lies that I had believed and that had kept me coming in last, undermining my worth, and kept me abandoning myself. So here's some of the things that came up, some of the thoughts, some of the old stories and lies. Look at you trying to be smart. 2,162 steps. Now I should say here that I had one of those little Fitbits that counted every little fart and squiggle throughout the day. You still in school? Nobody's gonna want you with too much education. 4,281 steps. Oh, you're pretty to be so dark. 6,957 steps. Smile, bitch. 9,167 steps. Well, why aren't you smiling, Kriste? You're making us nervous. 12,813 steps. You don't seem grateful to be here, Kriste. 15,458 steps. You are so articulate. 17,981 steps. The challenge had become my cause. Now, so what's the takeaway to all of this? Except that I see why people brought their printouts instead of the book, because I'm just like, well, the takeaway is this. It wasn't just Tanya's ass that got kicked in the end, but I had kicked my own because I had almost forgotten what fierce competition, commitment to myself, and to being my own cheerleader felt like. Now, I'm better at owning my ambition and going for the win, even if I lose while I'm at it, because I deserve my shot. Tanya took hers, and it helped me take mine. And who knows, maybe me taking mine helps you with yours, because no one is going to give you the win. False humility and rationalizing will not keep you warm at night, and your silence will not protect you either. It's not just what I believe, it's what I know. Thank you.
Keep it going for Kriste Peoples. Woo! Fucking awesome. All right, y'all, we have 2 more storytellers tonight. So can I please have Andrew Walker to the stage? Yeah. Andrew Walker is a writer who can't find a home in any particular genre, but prefers to rent out space in each when he's in the right mood. He does, however, hesitate to compare poetry to a landlord, as he prefers the warm embrace of a poem over the angry voicemails about overdue utility bills. Give it up for Andrew Walker.
Oh my God, I can't believe I've never told you this one before. Let me try and set the scene. Okay. The room feels like the end of a college party. The air feels thick, the music feels intrusive, and we feel drunk. The floor feels, well, like a floor, hard and purposeful, deliberate in its holding of us. Yawning but not wanting the night to end, Jennifer calls those of us still standing in the kitchen, beer warming in our hands, to sit with her. Drunk, we join her, subconsciously making a circle on the floor, a leftover habit from our college seminars. Jeff pulls 2 joints from his shirt pocket, lights one on each side of his mouth, and passes them around the circle in opposite directions. From his lips, it passes through Colin's, Sarah's, Lilith's, Matthew's, Shelley's, while Rick, Greg, Hannah, and Percy pass. Apollo steps outside, not wanting the smell of pot to stick to his clothes. He's leaving in a few days for Arizona, for California, for Korea. His job is taking him to a new life with new possibilities. And while we're happy for his opportunities, we can't help but feel hurt by his approaching absence. When the smell has more or less dissipated, we call him back inside, but he has already left. Time moves differently when you're intoxicated. Truth or dare? Jennifer says, slurred, pointing to one of us. We laugh and pass the joints, the bottle of bourbon, the questions around the room, nearly everyone picking truth, while Lilith, always the bravest of us, runs at Sarah's request, half nude, through the sprinklers outside of the apartment. As the game goes on, we all begin to realize this isn't really a game of truth or dare, but a group of friends trying to dig deeper into one another, excavating from each one of us what we have hidden. Eventually, Jennifer, our ringmaster, halts the circus of half-hearted truths and offers a change of rules. Change a name, too, she says, sipping gingerly from her heavy glass of wine, staining her bare lips a matte red. Truth or chug? She eyes the group knowingly. Since none of you are daring enough for, well, daring, we'll switch it up a bit. Make you more and less uncomfortable. Tell the truth or finish your drink. Everyone has to answer or everyone has to drink. That way, we'll know if you're hiding something. We accept mightily, cementing the game as tradition before it even begins. We crack open new beers, pour ourselves more liquor. A few of us opt to fill our glasses with Coke, not wanting to fill ourselves too full, knowing ourselves better than we often let on. Jennifer once again starts the game off with a smile and asks, "Where would you rather be than right here, right now?" And when the question reaches me, I tell the circle, on the shitty kitchen floor in Fort Collins, in the house just off Prospect Road with the red door. I spent many nights there, drunkenly slumped against the fridge, crying to Maggie, who's gone now, in a different city, building a career in a place that benefits from her just as much as we did on nights like these. Back then, the taste of the space around me was new, Fireball and Coke, straight up, of course. Still danced on my tongue as if no one had ever mixed a better cocktail. The drunken conversations felt more real. We didn't need to play games to spill our truths. We wore them proudly on our sleeves as if we knew nothing better. Maggie and I would sit against the fridge, swallowing everything we thought would relieve us from our present and bring us back to where we thought we were happier, or we maybe were happier. Our liquor-fueled moments of joy had diminishing returns, though. And in our nights on the sticky, bubbling vinyl floor, Maggie and I knew this. Each time we spent against the fridge, we'd feel a longing for the first time we did just that, chasing the dragon down the tumultuous feedback loop of what we thought we wanted. Now that's cheating, Greg told the group now, accusing me of breaking the rules, breaking me from my story. That's not a place that's not here. That's a lot of different places. You have to pick just one. Otherwise, you're not answering the question. We were all drunk, and I could feel it heavy in my chest. I can't remember just one, I tell Greg, sipping from my cup, forgetting that I do not need to drink, forgetting that I am telling my truth. Still, it is a story. It's just told in fragments, like a puzzle, or like Star Wars. And like the movies, I've noticed those party nights, even those in which Maggie most likely didn't attend, all blend together into one giant pot of a singular moment, like the past distilled. I'm gonna miss this, Maggie told me once, close to her graduation, before she left for Texas, for grad school, before she would cross my path again, married and happy. We'll always have the memories, I told her. In celebration, she raised her cup, half empty, to the air. I hit mine against her, the red plastic crinkle drowned out under the sound of Kendrick Lamar blasting through a shitty Bluetooth boombox. We both drank. The circle gets smaller each time we play. At each party's end, the true end, after all has finished, that game would melt itself down into all the other instances. When recalling memories from those nights, we were never able to place faces with the location, who was there, who wasn't. We felt lost in the only place that had ever felt familiar. We're drunker now when we play too, disregarding the stakes of the game to dive deeper into our vices. It makes the answering easier, but the questions tougher since we've exhausted all the good ones. We know the strangest place any of us have fucked. We've thought about death together in ways we only thought we did alone, and we are well aware of and are massively uncomfortable with who has masturbated to whom. Our once exciting game was growing stagnant. Let's make this a half, Jennifer says this go around. Half the original circle moved on, moved out. The floor is still stable, but the foundation feels different. Shifted. What's the best compliment you ever remember receiving? It was the night I read poems about suicide to strangers in the back of a brewery. I had myself bound in a journal. 4 poems chosen from dozens written on a rainy beach had found themselves meaning something to someone other than myself. My friends all bought copies, told me I was required to sign my name on my favorite poem as we had done in our university's literary journal. No one had a pen, but Jennifer had lipstick, so I kissed all of their pages. Later, at the Thai place just up the road, we sat around shoving drunken noodles into our drunken mouths, talking about the evening, about writing, about how we're pretty sure this place used to let you sit on the ground, on the cushions and crisscross. I don't know. Was that this place? I can't remember. Someone, I can't remember who, tells a story about a game of truth or chug. One of the very first times, I'm pretty sure. Between sips of sake and crunches of sauce-drenched broccoli, Lilith turns to me and says, "You look really good in lipstick. I thought your beard would make you too masculine to pull it off, but I think you really pull it off." Later, not that night, but much later, after a drink or 4, I would pour poems into a journal questioning who I was or what I wanted or what I needed to understand about myself. Each sought for a truth I had subconsciously hidden away, but time and again I found I couldn't pull any simple truth from my body with just a pen. I was lost in a place of persistent questioning I can barely ask myself, opting to drink rather than search for the answers. I know that's more the story than you asked for, I tell the group, smaller now from even when I started my story. I know it got sad, but it's a happy memory. It's a good memory. Only 4 of us sit in front of each other now, but who knows if we'll remember it that way. We've asked so many questions by this point that we've begun to recycle them, projecting bits of ourselves we miss so entirely onto the blank screen of our bodies, as if we'll make it real again, as if we never knew how to grow or how to change. Eventually, Jennifer gets up to get a drink, but halfway to the kitchen decides she's going to bed instead and bids us an Irish goodbye. We only hear her door close. Lilith begins to leave too. Between bits of conversation, we watch her check her phone to see if her ride has arrived. Soon, she is stepping out the door and waving goodnight to just you and me. It makes sense that they leave. In their departure, they freed themselves from the game, from the floor, from the drinking, from telling the same stories to the same people over and over and over. They're growing out, they're growing up, growing away. After some silence, you tell me that the lift I didn't see you order will be here any minute. You stand and I stay, staring at the floor, at all it is holding, at all it used to hold, at you pulling on your coat over your shoulders, waiting to ask me something, at the drink sitting stagnant and daunting in its glass. At the door, you look back for the first time without a drink in your hand, and you ask me, so are you gonna stay here? Thanks. Thanks so much. I first found the Mercury Cafe when I was an impressionable little 18-year-old boy whose only literature he knew were pop punk lyrics and Stephen King novels. I attended a poetry slam downstairs, and it truly shook me to my core, and it's changed the trajectory of my life ever since. It is the reason I started writing and performing poetry, and it is the reason that I am still doing that to this day. It is such an important place, and I know it means so much more to so many more people. So it would be really, really, truly great if you could give all that you can and are willing to this wonderful, wonderful space. It's been said so many times tonight, but Denver will not be the same. Denver would not be the same without the Mercury Cafe. Fund Denver arts, save Denver art spaces, defund the Denver police. Thank you.
Andrew Walker. I can't believe we've come to our final storyteller of the night. I want to give a huge shout out to Stained Arts. This is an equal partnership with Stained and Soul Stories. Delia and I created this so many years ago, and as you guys have noticed, these stories are so special, so beautiful. It's one of the proudest moments of my creative journey to witness, to support, to be with the storytellers. And so with that, I want to welcome our final storyteller to the stage. Our next speaker is really special. This is a little different. At our first Liminal event, one of the storytellers, Andrew Jaffee, told his story about his fight with cancer. It was an incredibly moving and inspirational story. He has since passed. Someone who is really close to him will be sharing his story in place of him. Please welcome our final speaker of the night, Lauren Lewis.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm Andrew's girlfriend. He couldn't be here tonight, so I'm going to share his story in his place. Kriste, I'm going to suffer through the book with you, so here we go. I come to you today only with my own personal ponderings. I don't have any answers on what is true in this life. This is simply my own experience. I completed my first outdoor lead climb at the end of May 2017. It was the culmination of a year and a half of training. It was a beautiful day out. The sun was setting as I prepared to lead the climb. This would be my first time ever placing the rope instead of top roping on a job that someone else had set. Some of the holds were hard, and I almost fell a few times as I struggled up the face of that mountain. When I reached the top that day, I looked out and saw the last bits of sunlight touching the earth from Golden all the way to Denver. I felt on top of the world. I had worked hard for it. I had practiced in the gym for a long time. My hands were calloused and rough from the work I had put in. Being outdoors, feeling that real rock beneath my hands, smelling that mixture of sweat and earth, I knew I had accomplished something. I remember saying it felt as though this was my second bar mitzvah. I had truly become a man that day. It took me a while to feel brave enough to join the climbing community in Colorado. At first, I was intimidated by the other climbers and the whole culture itself. But when I got on that wall again for the first time, I knew I was meant for it. It felt right, and I was good at it. At the time, this is what strength looked like to me. It was measurable. I could see the progression in each new hold I made and each fall I took. These were all steps leading me down a predictable, comprehensible path. I was diagnosed with cancer just a week after that outdoor climb. It was June 2017. This launched me into truly uncharted territory. It's a battle that I continue to fight, a battle that has enveloped my whole life. Since I was diagnosed, my beliefs have changed significantly. My strength isn't as measurable now. I can't see myself progressing like I used to. Now it's more of a quality over quantity. Being able to climb out of bed is a huge accomplishment for me. Sleeping less than 14 hours a day feels like a success. Walking my dog around the block is my new mountain to ascend. Often I find it very easy to get down on myself. I don't think that I'm doing enough. I could try harder. I'm just being lazy. Sometimes just giving myself the grace to feel sick and vulnerable is all the strength I can muster for the day. This new understanding of strength, of how far it actually drives a person, has really opened myself to others. It has shown me that every person at all times of the day is fighting their own personal battles. It has taught me to be less critical of others. I see now that everyone is struggling in their own ways. No person's struggle is bigger or smaller than another's. Everyone's struggle is valid. It's my wish that people would afford themselves the grace that I give myself in not feeling strong at times. Before this diagnosis, the mentioning of a miracle seemed trite and uninformed. It was an admission that there was some higher power, a man in the clouds that could dictate my life. I didn't believe in predestination, and I wouldn't give credence to anything that even pointed in that direction. Now I see there are miracles everywhere around us. This idea all started on an exceptionally bad day in the hospital. My mother, witness to all my pain, told me of an Albert Einstein quote that she had heard in a meditation recording. It went something like, "There are two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is." This struck me hard. I couldn't see there being no miracles in the world with all the good things that were happening to me in this terrible time of my life. Miracles were all around me, just in me opening my eyes every morning. It was a miracle that my GoFundMe was supported enough that I didn't have to go into massive amounts of debt. It was a miracle that my uncle happened to be the head of pathology at Brigham and Women's at Harvard. It was a miracle that I have parents and friends and a girlfriend that care enough for each and every new struggle that I face. Once I was upset that I had to go from the hospital to my radiation appointment just a mere block away on Sunday. I complained to the man that strapped me into the truck. It turned out that this man wheeling me had beaten lung cancer as a child. He told me that the world may seem unfair at times, things do get better. What else could these good fortunes be if not miracles? Now, while I don't think of myself as more religious, I definitely think of myself as more spiritual and understanding the flow of the universe. Good and bad things happen to both good and bad people all the time. I feel, though, that giving the good things credence as miracles is a small way to be thankful for what I have, rather than feeling as if the universe owes me anything. Finally, in the long hours and days of lying in bed, I really started to analyze the difference between simply being alive and truly living. I often don't feel like a survivor, and yet I survive. Yeah. Being bedridden forces me to be present every second of the day. At times, I am so immobile that my reality and my dream life intertwine. I spend more and more time asleep because in my dreams, I am truly free. I can walk without a cane. I can fly without wings. I blend in a crowd. I am no one's inspiration or motivation, and that feels good. While I feel so free of life's pains, I will be lucidly reminded that I am in fact only dreaming and that it is not my time to stay in this dreamland forever. So I wake up. As I lie in bed all day, I remember my past life. Going out with friends, laughing, climbing, adventuring, that was truly living for me. I was an early childhood educator, a life's calling which I only figured out about 6 years ago. The transition from going from one that took care of others to the one being cared for was difficult. But it's what I needed, and that needs to be all right for now. I may not be climbing mountains yet, but I'll be damned if that climb in May was the last one of my life. I know deep inside that one day I'll be back on those rock faces again. So Andrew died 6 months after he told that story, and he did spend all of that time truly living and not simply being alive. He showed us his strength by getting out of bed most days, by showing up at the hospital for a brain surgery, by loving and studying for his classes and living even in his final days. One of his wishes, though, was that his friends and family would spread his ashes all around the world. And this week marks 2 years since he's passed, and his ashes have been all over the world. They're in the mountains in Nepal, they're on the Galapagos Islands, they're on the beaches of Cuba. They've been spread at the headwaters of the Mississippi to float all the way down to New Orleans. What a gift that was, right? That he charged us with living for him. Andrew was not simply a visitor in this life. He made a mark, and he left a legacy of strength and courage and connection, and choosing to be fully alive even in the face of uncertainty. So as we leave here tonight, I hope you will all join me in honoring his memory by doing the same. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Lauren Lewis. Oh. I can't even talk. Great.
That was really beautiful. Thanks for stepping into that and stepping into the role of carrying on his life, and what a beautiful way to frame that. Thanks to each of you really for coming back here and creating this space again with us, and being such beautiful and vulnerable and honest beings. It really, gosh, I feel very grateful, and I feel immensely touched by each of you, and well held is how I feel. We'll be here tomorrow evening. We have 9 new storytellers. Some of you have tickets to that, which is awesome. You can live stream it. I think tomorrow's going to be smoother than today, but today wasn't horrible. That's kind of all I got here. And also just enormous appreciation to Gio, who creates ambiance like no one. Yeah. I think you're partially why I feel well held. I'm like, I trust you to just kind of turn over the space for us. So thanks for being so attentive back there. And to our beautiful film crew, who is just, God, amazing. This wouldn't be anything without you.
Yeah.
Sweet. Have a good evening, everyone.